There comes a time in life when the masks begin to fall, and you finally see with crystal clarity the invisible dynamics that have shaped your family relationships for decades. At 60, you carry within you a library of experiences, emotional scars, and behavioral patterns that, until now, may have gone unnoticed. But what if I told you that two seemingly harmless attitudes that you still hold are precisely the gateways that allow your family members to continue manipulating your emotions, your decisions, and even your future? What if these two attitudes were the invisible strings that others pull to make you dance to their tune, even when you believe you are in control? Family manipulation doesn't scream or knock on the door to announce its arrival. It whispers softly, dresses up in the clothes of love and concern, and infiltrates the most vulnerable moments of your existence. After your 60s, when society subtly begins to treat you as someone who needs special care, your own children, grandchildren, and even spouses may begin to test boundaries you never knew existed. They watch your reactions, map out your emotional weaknesses, and gradually learn exactly which strings to pull to make you give in, to make you say yes when you should say no, to make you give up your autonomy in the name of a family harmony that, in reality, serves only their interests. Have you ever wondered why, even after living so much, experiencing so much, and learning so much, you still feel small when faced with certain family pressures? Why can a few words from people you love completely disarm your confidence and make you question decisions that, deep down, you knew were right? The answer lies in two behaviors that you have developed throughout your life. Two attitudes that were useful in the past, but that have now become bridges that allow others to cross your emotional boundaries without asking permission. These are attitudes that are so natural, so integrated into your personality, that you don't even realize when they are being exploited against you. Time is running out, and with each passing day, the window of opportunity to reclaim your personal power and establish truly healthy family relationships gets a little smaller. Not because you're getting older, but because patterns become more rigid, dynamics become more rigid, and those around you become accustomed to the role of controller while you become accustomed to the role of controlled. There's a quiet urgency to this discovery, a need to wake up before it's too late, before you find yourself trapped in relationships that drain your life energy and diminish the quality of your golden years. Today, in this video, you will discover these two attitudes that act as master keys in the hands of family manipulators. You will understand not only what they are, but how they operate at the deepest psychological level, how they have been built throughout your personal history, and most importantly, how to neutralize them once and for all. Because when you remove these two levers from the reach of others, something extraordinary happens. You not only stop being manipulated, you also rediscover a version of yourself that may have been dormant for years, a powerful, authentic, and unbreakable version that is waiting to emerge and transform your family relationships into genuine connections based on mutual respect and true love. The first of these devastating behaviors is something you do every day, over and over again, without even realizing that you are handing over the keys to your emotional kingdom to anyone who knows how to use them. It is the automatic tendency to justify your decisions to others, especially family members, as if you were a child asking for permission to exist. When you turn 60, your mind still carries echoes of times when you needed to account for yourself, explain your actions, validate your choices through the approving gaze of parents, bosses, or spouses. But now, this compulsive need for justification has become a powerful tool in the hands of those who want to control your decisions. Every time you feel the urge to explain why you chose this over that, why you spent money this way, why you made this decision about your own life, you are unconsciously signaling that your autonomy is up for negotiation. The psychological mechanism behind this compulsion is deep and complex, rooted in decades of social and familial conditioning. Your entire life, you've been taught that good people explain their actions, that transparency equals honesty, that healthy relationships require constant accountability. But there's an invisible line between sharing information out of love and justifying decisions out of fear of disapproval. When you cross that line, when your explanations sound defensive, when your words sound like apologies for choices that are legitimately yours, you've just opened a door that family manipulators can slash through with surgical ease. They learn that you need their validation, and once they've learned that need, they control the supply of this emotional drug. Manipulation through demands for justification is subtle and devastatingly effective because it disguises itself as genuine concern. Your children may question your financial decisions because they worry about your future. Your spouse may demand explanations about your habits because they want to understand you better. Family members may question your social choices because they fear you will be taken advantage of by others. In each of these scenarios, the manipulator is not asking for information. They are establishing their authority over your life. They are testing whether you still believe that you need their approval to validate your own decisions. And when you respond by justifying, explaining, and defending yourself, you confirm that yes, you still believe that your autonomy depends on their consent. What makes this dynamic even more toxic is that the more you justify, the more justifications are demanded. It's like feeding an addiction. With each explanation you give, the hunger for control only grows. Your family members start to question smaller and smaller, more and more personal decisions because they've learned that you'll give in, that you'll explain, that you'll defend yourself. Gradually, you find yourself justifying why you chose that outfit, why you decided to eat lunch at that time, why you called a certain person, why you changed your mind about something. Your entire life becomes a courtroom where you're simultaneously the defendant and the witness, always proving that you deserve to have made the choices you did, always seeking a not guilty verdict in decisions that aren't even crimes. Breaking free from this first trap begins with a revolutionary understanding. You don't owe anyone explanations for decisions that affect only your life. Your family members are not your supervisors, your auditors, or your judges. They are people you love and who, ideally, love you back. But true love doesn't demand constant accountability for personal choices. When you stop automatically justifying your decisions, when you learn to answer invasive questions with a simple "because that's what I wanted to do," when you stop treating your choices as crimes that need to be defended, something powerful happens. You remove the main tool that manipulators use to maintain control over your emotional life. The second attitude that serves as a direct bridge to family manipulation is even more insidious because it masquerades as a virtue. It is the compulsive need to maintain family peace at all costs, even when that peace is built on the foundation of your own self-denial. Over the years, you have developed a deep-seated allergy to conflict, a phobia of confrontation that causes you to cede emotional ground whenever someone raises their voice, whenever tensions begin to surface, whenever superficial harmony threatens to crack and reveal the uncomfortable truths that lie beneath the surface of family relationships. This aversion to conflict seems noble on the surface. After all, who doesn't want to be a peaceful, understanding person who prioritizes family unity above all else? But experienced manipulators recognize this trait instantly and turn it into their most powerful weapon. What you may not realize is that your need to avoid conflict does not arise from a love of harmony, but from a deep-seated fear of rejection. Somewhere in your emotional history, you learned that disagreeing means being abandoned, that expressing discontent can result in isolation, that standing up for yourself can cost you relationships. This internal programming has shaped you into a person who would rather swallow annoyances, ignore slights, and accept unfair situations than face the possibility that by standing up for yourself, you may discover that some people in your family only love you when you are convenient for them. It is more comfortable to believe that you are preserving family love through your passivity than to discover that some of this love is conditional, superficial, and self-serving. Family manipulators love people who shy away from conflict because they have discovered the secret to controlling you. Simply create the threat of emotional turmoil. They don't have to yell. They don't have to make a dramatic scene. All they have to do is raise their voice slightly, show a hint of irritation, hint that they are disappointed in you, and you immediately back down, apologize, and give in. They have learned that you fear tension more than injustice, more fear discord than devaluation. So they use your aversion to conflict as a subtle but devastatingly effective tool of control. They know that when faced with the choice between standing up for your rights and keeping the peace, you will always choose the latter. The result of this dynamic is a life where you become invisible in your own family relationships. Your needs are never prioritized because you never express them with the necessary force. Your opinions are rarely taken seriously because you abandon them at the first sign of resistance. Your boundaries are constantly violated because you lack the courage to stand up for them when doing so might create friction. You become a ghost version of yourself, Physically present but emotionally absent, always giving way, always giving up your voice, always putting the convenience of others above your own dignity. And the tragic thing is that this peace you fight so hard to preserve is not true harmony, but rather the stillness of an emotional graveyard where your authenticity was buried long ago. The cruel irony of this second attitude is that by avoiding small, healthy conflicts, you end up creating deep-seated resentments that poison your relationships from within. Every time you swallow an injustice in order to keep the peace, a little part of you dies. Every time you put yourself down to avoid tension, you add a layer of hurt to your heart. Over time, these small resentments build up like sediment at the bottom of a lake, creating a subterranean toxicity that taints every interaction. You start to feel an inexplicable sadness when you're with your family, a sense of emptiness you can't quite name, an emotional distance that seems to come out of nowhere. In reality, you're feeling the weight of all the times you've betrayed yourself in the name of a superficial harmony that benefits only those who take advantage of your passivity. Understanding these two attitudes, the compulsion to justify and the avoidance of conflict, is just the first step in a journey of personal rediscovery that goes far beyond simply stopping behaviors. It's about reconnecting with a version of yourself that may have been dormant for years, a version that holds strong opinions and doesn't apologize for them, that values its own inner peace more than external approval, that understands that genuine relationships are built on mutual respect, not on the submission of one party to the other. When you start to question these automatic patterns, when you develop the courage to make trouble in order to be authentic, when you learn that your dignity is worth more than any superficial harmony, you don't just stop being manipulated, you rediscover who you really are beneath all the masks you've learned to wear to please others. There is a painful but liberating transition when you decide to stop feeding these two destructive attitudes. At first, you will feel fear that your family members will react badly, fear that relationships will deteriorate, fear that you will discover truths about people you love who may not be as loving as you thought. This fear is natural and expected. After all, you are letting go of emotional coping strategies that you have used for decades. But on the other side of this fear is a freedom that you may no longer remember what it feels like. The freedom to be yourself unapologetically. The freedom to make decisions based on what is best for you rather than what will generate the least resistance. The freedom to express discontent when something is not right, even if it causes a little temporary turmoil. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it shouldn't. Radical changes to deeply ingrained patterns of behavior can shock both you and your family members, creating more drama than necessary. The most effective transformation is gradual but consistent. You begin to notice when you're justifying decisions that don't need justifying, and you gently stop doing so. You notice when you're avoiding necessary conflict, and you gradually develop the courage to face these difficult conversations with love, but also with firmness. You practice saying no without explaining why. You practice expressing discontent without apologizing for feeling it. You practice standing up for your views even when they're unpopular at the family dinner table. Resistance will arise, and you need to be prepared for it. When you stop being predictable and manipulable, when you stop being the person who always gives in and always explains, your family members may become confused, irritated, or even angry. They may accuse you of changing, of becoming difficult, of being selfish. These accusations are actually confirmations that you are on the right track. When people who benefited from your passivity start complaining about your new assertiveness, it means that you are finally prioritizing your emotional well-being. Negative reactions are temporary. People who genuinely love you will adjust to the new dynamic and learn to relate to you in a more respectful way. Those who fail to make this adjustment were, in fact, more interested in controlling you than in loving you. As you free yourself from these two emotional bonds, something extraordinary begins to happen in your family relationships. Paradoxically, when you stop trying to please everyone, you become more genuinely likable. When you stop avoiding conflict, you create space for real resolutions to problems that have been swept under the rug for years. When you stop justifying your decisions, you become more interesting, more mysterious, more respected. Your family members begin to realize that they can no longer take you for granted, that they can no longer assume that you will always give in, always explain, always put yourself aside for their convenience. This change in dynamics forces relationships that are more honest, more balanced, and ironically, more harmonious than those based on your self-effacement. The most powerful aspect of this transformation is how it affects your own perception of yourself. For years, you may have seen yourself as weak, as someone who has no choice but to go along with whatever your family decides. But when you develop the courage to stop making excuses and face necessary conflict, you rediscover an inner strength that has always been there, just dormant. You realize that you can stand up for yourself, that your opinions have value, that your happiness is just as important as anyone else's in your family. This rediscovery of your own personal power radiates into every area of your life. You become more confident in other situations, more willing to pursue your own dreams, more able to set healthy boundaries not only with your family, but with everyone around you. There is a spiritual depth to this journey that goes beyond simple behavioral change. In your 60s, you are at a point in your life where time becomes too precious to waste on relationships that drain your life energy. You deserve to spend your golden years surrounded by people who celebrate who you truly are, not people who only tolerate you when you are playing the role they want you to play. When you free yourself from the need to justify and avoid conflict, you not only improve your family relationships, you honor the wisdom that comes with age. You respect the person you have become through all the experiences you have lived. You finally give yourself permission to exist fully, without masks, without excuses, without the constant need for external approval to validate your own existence. Now you know. Now you see. The two attitudes that for decades served as open doors to family manipulation have finally been exposed to the harsh light of consciousness. The compulsive need to keep the peace and the chronic guilt that makes you feel eternally indebted to others are not character defects. They are emotional survival strategies that were once useful, but have now become invisible chains that limit your freedom to be who you truly are. And the most liberating truth of all is this: you always had the power to break them. You always held the key to your own emotional prison. All you needed was the map, the understanding, the courage to look within and recognize that your goodness was being used against you by people who were supposed to protect you. There is a silent force that is born when someone decides to stop putting themselves aside in the name of love. It is an energy that does not shout, does not protest, does not make a fuss. It simply exists, firm and unshakable like a mountain. When you stop justifying your decisions to those who have no right to judge them, when you develop the courage to face necessary conflicts instead of sweeping everything under the rug, when you free yourself from the toxic guilt that made you carry problems that were never yours, something extraordinary happens. You rediscover your own voice. A voice that may have become hoarse from so much silence, but that is still there, waiting to speak truths that need to be told, to establish limits that need to be respected, to honor a life that deserves to be lived fully. The beautiful paradox of this transformation is that by letting go of trying to please everyone, you become genuinely more loving. By letting go of conflict avoidance, you create space for deeper, more authentic connections. By refusing to carry guilt that isn't yours, you finally have enough emotional energy to offer real love. Not the desperate love of someone begging for approval, but the calm love of someone who knows, respects, and values themselves. Your family relationships may go through a period of adjustment, and some may even resist your new approach. But the ones that survive this transformation will be relationships based on mutual respect, not manipulation disguised as affection. 60 is not a mark of decline. It is a gateway to practical wisdom, to emotional freedom, to the courage to live authentically. Every wrinkle on your face tells a story of resilience. Every gray hair carries the memory of storms you've weathered. Every line of expression is a map of the joys you've had the courage to feel. You didn't get here to become an emotional puppet in the hands of family members who mistake love for control. You got here to finally take off the masks, to stop playing roles that don't reflect who you really are, to discover that the person you've always been is even more interesting, wiser, and more powerful than any edited version you've created to please others. The journey that begins today is not just about stopping being manipulated. It's about rediscovering the joy of being yourself. It's about waking up in the morning knowing that your decisions are yours, that your energy is yours, that your happiness doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. It's about looking in the mirror and seeing not a person who owes constant explanations to the world, but someone who has lived, learned, grown, and is now ready for the next phase of life. a phase where love is a choice, not an obligation, where peace is built on solid foundations of honesty, not on the quicksand of denial. If this video touched something deep inside you, if you recognized your own pitfalls in these words, if you felt a spark of hope ignite in your chest, then don't let that energy go to waste. Like this video so that others in the same situation can find it. Share it with someone who needs to hear these truths. Leave a comment telling us how you intend to apply these discoveries in your own life. And subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of authenticity and emotional freedom. Because the transformation you deserve doesn't happen alone. It grows and strengthens when it's shared with others who have also decided to choose courage over comfort, truth over convenience, freedom over approval.